Perfect. Okay. Awesome. So I want to give everyone a big thank you for joining us this evening. And as a brief opening note, as you get into the lobby or excuse me, get into the meeting and get settled, this session is being recorded. So just so you're aware of that. But again, welcome to our event tonight, Exploring Diverse Careers in Banking, hosted by SNHU Career Services and the New Hampshire Bankers Association. We're really excited to be here tonight. My name is Daisy Gillum. I'm one of the employer relations partners here at SNHU, and I'm also joined this evening by a few co-hosts who I will be introducing here in a few minutes. I want to get some housekeeping just front of mind first. So I want to let you know about our access and accommodations. So your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify if you're an online student. It will be the Online Accessibility Center by emailing oac@snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430. If you're a campus student, you'll email the Campus Accessibility Center by emailing cac@snhu.edu or by phone at 603-644-3118. And finally, if you're faculty or staff, you'll contact the Human Resources Office by emailing hr@snhu.edu. I would also highly encourage if you're a student to go ahead and connect with SNHU Career Services. It's a fantastic, dedicated team, and we're here to help you with your career journey every step of the way. So if that's resume planning, attending events like this, whatever it looks like, I highly suggest that you connect with us on our various social media platforms so that you can stay up to date with the events that we're doing and also contact your career advisor to have an appointment with them as well. I also wanted to cover a couple of tips for engagement for this evening. So you've probably noticed that your camera and your mic are disabled. This is just so that we can focus on the panel for the actual conversation part of the evening. If you have any questions, you can submit them via the chat box in Teams. And I would actually go ahead and encourage you to do so now. If you want to just submit where you're coming from and what your program of study is, I would love to know. We will have time for Q&A at the end, and you'll also be able to turn on your mic and your camera at that point if you would like to. So I would like to introduce our co-hosts. I'm joined this evening by Elisa Morse, who is with the Newburyport Bank. She is the Customer Experience Officer. I'm also joined by Mariah Davis from Mascoma Bank. She's the Community Impact Manager. Abigail Chapman, from Franklin Savings Bank. She's the Business Systems and Fraud Analyst. Danielle Ruffo from the Savings Bank of Walpole. She is the Community Engagement Officer and CRA Officer. And finally, Mackenzie Hay from First Seacoast Bank. She is the Senior Loan Operations Representative. I also encourage you to submit your resume at info@nhbankers.com. It's a fantastic organization. They are open to receiving your resumes. I know that they would welcome it. So we're going to switch gears just a little bit here, and we're going to watch a brief video. If I can get back to you guys, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to remember to share the sound, which is very important for videos. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, we'll watch this brief video and we'll come back together and we'll start the panel.
Hello, future prospective bankers. My name is Elise Cushing. I work at Meredith Village Savings Bank as a business development officer.
I'm Sarah Rosley. I'm a mortgage loan officer with the Savings Bank of Walpole.
Hello, my name is Amy Mavris. I work in the marketing department for New Hampshire Mutual Bancorp.
Hi, my name is Rennie Gust, and I am with Bar Harbor Bank and Trust.
My name is Kevin Mitchell. I am a senior loan processor at Bank Prob.
My name's Kendra Carter, and I work in the retail department at Savings Bank of Walpole.
Hi, I'm Sarah Fraze, and I'm the marketing specialist at First Seacoast Bank.
Hi, I'm Danielle Ruffo. I work at Savings Bank of Walpole as the CEO, which for me stands for Community Engagement Officer.
There is a misconception that the banking industry is for stuffy older folks, but it's not. There's a lot of young people, and there's a lot of opportunities for young people because they do want to retain those in the industry.
Don't look at it as, oh, banking's a stuffy three-piece suit kind of job. I'm not wearing a suit.
Even though it's banking and you look at it as numbers and helping customers, there are a lot of different areas that you can work in. It's definitely something that people just graduating could definitely make a career out of.
I think a lot of people think to themselves, I'm not great with math, so why would I work at a bank? But the truth is, banking can open the door to IT, to sales positions, to human resources, and all these other careers that may be hard to break into.
There's great opportunities in marketing, compliance, technology, and so much more.
You can work in marketing, you can work in finance, you can work as a mortgage lender or a commercial lender, an analyst.
You can go finance, marketing, lending, retail.
Supervisory positions, management positions. If you are really into sales, you could do something like I do in business development.
IT to accounting.
Operations teams who manage our data systems, add creative, the Mad Men type stuff. Not really.
Opportunities exist with banks to start part-time or start in an entry-level job and then just get the on-the-job knowledge to work your way up into different positions.
There's an immense amount of options to go from, and so if you start in one aspect, you're not limited to stay there.
There's almost something for everyone in the banking industry.
When I came out of college with a business leadership focused degree, I needed that real world experience to help find my path. This job gave me so many opportunities to work with areas across the bank, and it also helped me develop some strengths of my own.
I've had to, reach out and do some business development, and that's just pushed me personally to just take it a little bit further than what I'd be comfortable doing.
I've had a ton of different learning opportunities, and I've learned so much from all of the different people I work with. So I'm really grateful for that personal growth and working in an industry that really supports that.
You definitely have to be driven and be willing to learn new things for real life skills by working in banking that many people might not have so early on. I actually majored in sport management, and here I am in banking, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
I was lucky enough to encounter so many different mentors in leadership roles, eager to share their knowledge and guidance throughout my career.
Having an incredible support system and having the drive and ambition to do so, you can really work up the ladder in the banking industry. You really have to manage yourself to kind of champion that position you're in and make more of it for yourself.
When I took a position as a teller at 22 years old, I never expected it to lead to a career in marketing and graphic design. I had zero graphic design experience. Now I'm creating print and digital ads on a regular basis. And I think what's great about banking is they really know when to invest in something great. And your future could be the next great thing for them.
I really feel like we are making a difference every day for all the customers that we serve in our local communities.
When you live in the community where you work, your customers aren't just a name or an account number. They're your friends, they're your neighbors, they're your kids' teachers. And when people ask me questions about the bank or where I work, I always have a sense of pride in knowing that we're looking out for what matters most at our business, and that's the people.
Especially being part of a community bank, I get to play a role in the place that I love.
Why not have a job that you not only enjoy doing, but that gives you that sense of pride and purpose?
Being part of that community of bankers, both in the workplace and out in our neighborhoods doing community service, working on similar mutual projects, and really comes down to the people and the relationships that I've been able to build. So push yourself out there, look into it, do your homework, consider becoming a banker. I'm really glad that I did.
Awesome. I love that video and the focus on community, especially there at the end. I would like to start this evening with our resident celebrity. So, Danielle, if I could ask you, since you starred in this video, if you could tell us a little bit about, again, just your title, because I'm sure you could explain it better than I could, and what a day in the life looks like for you. Is everything okay, Danielle? Or we can, sorry, okay.
No, sorry. So can you repeat yourself, Daisy?
I absolutely can. I just wanted to ask if you could please tell us a little bit about your title and your role at the bank, because I'm sure you could explain it better than I can, and what a day in the life looks like for you.
Sure, absolutely. So my name's Danielle Ruffo, and I am the Assistant Vice President of Community Engagement. Also in my title is Marketing, and I'm also our CRA Officer at Savings Bank of Walpole. And so every day is very different, but being part of a small community bank, you definitely are interacting with your community on a daily basis, and that includes like internal and external. So I'm working with our employees every day to see how they want to play a role in our community, but we're also, I'm looking at all the marketing functions I do our social media. There's so many facets that come with marketing, and then on top of that we have I have the CRA role, which is a more heavily regulated area, but it's still it kind of matches the community engagement portion of my job. So all of them are individual on their own, but they all really come together as well.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Mariah, could I ask you the same question, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Mariah Davis. I work at Mascoma Bank, and I'm the Community Impact Manager. And Danielle and I actually have very similar roles, so she kind of did some of the work for me. Predominantly what I do, I manage our community impact programs, which for us at Mascoma includes our philanthropy. So we donate about $2 million a year, so I manage that process. We also have a volunteer program, which a lot of banks do as well. I manage that process. And actually new this year, I'm looking at our environmental impact, which is new for the bank. So that's what I do. So it's kind of anything that's, impacting our community sort of falls under me. So it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I love that you're also considering the environmental impact. So that's great to hear. And I'm just kind of going around my screen here. So Mackenzie, would you mind the same question, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Mackenzie Hay. I am the Senior Loan Operations Representative at First Seacoast Bank. And my typical day really revolves around my customers. So I'm helping both my internal customers, which is lenders, tellers, and then I also help our loan customers. So loan servicing really is kind of about problem solving. Most of the time we only get calls from our customers when there's something wrong. So it's really fast paced, out of the box thinking, and also following the regulations, making sure that we're doing everything correctly. I also am part of our new DEI committee at the bank, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's the next step that our institution is taking, just to better serve the community around us. But yeah, my day to day is pretty consistent, actually, which I like. The problems can be different, but the actual work is pretty consistent, which gives me time for the committee and other things like that.
I love that perspective. I think there's a lot to be said for days that are always different, and also a lot to be said for consistency. So that's a great perspective. And Elisa, if I could please end with you and the same question, please.
Sure. So I fall in the group of there's not one day that's the same. Every day is different for me. So my title is Customer Experience Officer. It evolved out of being the Director of Marketing after we did a massive rebranding campaign and we realized our message in the community was wonderful, but we needed to make sure that our customer experience internally and externally matched it. So that's when my role evolved. So I touch marketing. I do the look and design of all of our branches and all of our facilities, help with all of the look and feel of our online software solutions as well. In addition to that, I've taken on a new responsibility of quality management. So now that we've defined this customer experience, what are the metrics we need to put in place internally to make sure we're delivering the experience to our internal customers, which are our employees, and our external our external customers, which are all the customers that first come to mind. So yes, there's not one day that's the same, but it's very fun and very exciting. There's also a big research component of my job. So whether it be with the community, with our customers, or with prospects, looking to understand what are the products and services they're most interested in that they would like us to design, because I also oversee a committee that does our product development. So never a day that is the same. So that's my boat. I do like routine. So I have to say, I do wish I had days like Mackenzie some days, but no, the days pass quickly when there's a lot of diversity.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And I hear, I think some subtext there is lots of Excel spreadsheets and documents, I can only imagine. So, which is one of my favorite things. Mariah, if I can ask you, please, when you were in college, did you think that was the banking industry your goal or not? And regardless, how did you get into your current position?
Yeah, so I actually have a pretty interesting story. So did not think, as many people in banking, when you ask them, did you think you were going to be working at a bank? And they're like, absolutely not. So that was definitely my thought as well. I never really considered it. I actually got into Mascoma through an internship, and we pay our interns. And I had several years in college where I did internships that were unpaid. So when I found a paid internship, I was like, didn't matter the industry to me. I was like, all right, we're going for it. So I applied. It was in our marketing department, and got that internship, which was fantastic. And so, I was very open to kind of learning about the business, banking, all of that. I majored in college in communications, so I do not have a finance or accounting background at all. And what I quickly learned was that you didn't need that, and that banking was a lot more than finance or accounting, as many others will share too. And so I really liked it. I really liked my manager. I really liked the culture at Mascoma. And so I left my internship on good terms, and then they asked me to apply for a position, and then I interviewed for that and received that before I graduated, actually. So that was sort of how I got into banking, and I've been here since.
That's awesome. I do think that a traditional linear career trajectory these days is definitely becoming a unicorn. So that's
Yeah.
great to hear that your experience matches that that as well. Danielle, could I ask you the same question? Did you intend to get into banking, or what did that career trajectory look like for you?
Yeah, so mine is kind of, I don't know if I would say unique, but right out of even high school, I started as a teller. That was my first real job. I would do it part-time kind of after school, and kind of I went that route. And so when I went to college, I decided to continue that, and I just moved from where I was at that point to the bank that was in that area, and I just did it all throughout college. And so I actually graduated and thought to myself, okay, I just went to 4 years of college, and I'm going to go and work at a bank, which I could have done without going to college necessarily. But thankfully, with patience and, as the years have gone on, it's really going, I see what I did then is now paying off in my, in my banking career. And my mom actually worked at a bank, which again, I never, as a, as I was getting into college, I never thought, oh, I'm going to do what my mom does, or I'm going to, go in the banking world. It just happened to work out that way.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure having the role model, even if it wasn't perhaps that at the time, is also really encouraging to look up to. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So my mom was a baker, so I completely understand that. Elisa, what is one thing that you wish you knew when you first started out in the banking industry that you would tell yourself now?
So I think the one thing that I would tell myself now, when I started out, I really thought that you were really pigeonholed. So if you started as a teller, you were always going to be a teller, and you could only go up through retail. You couldn't go anywhere else. And I think now, looking back on my career, I would say you're not pigeonholed. get your foot in the door, start somewhere, and then you have so many opportunities depending what your interests are to expand on what you know now and what you want to learn in the future. And so many banks will pay for your training, pay for your education because they really buy into you as a person. So I would think that looking back, I would just acknowledge the fact that, look, you can go anywhere you want within the bank. You're not just in one department or in one lane.
That's a great answer. And that's actually really insightful because I think especially you only know what you know. So being able to get into an industry and see that there are opportunities available, that's fantastic. Mackenzie, you mentioned that you've been working now with the DEI committee. What is that work like? And does that committee have impact outside of the bank, even in the community, perhaps?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. That's half of the goal. So we have the goal of incorporating DEI within the bank and then also within the community as well. Being in New Hampshire, we do have some diversity, but not as much as it could be. So I think a lot of the information that we're passing out has been really eye-opening. We're doing some kind of holidays that people aren't necessarily aware of and what they mean, like Ramadan. So that's been really great. That was more of an internal thing. For the month of October, it's all about breast cancer awareness. So we recently partnered with the Seacoast Cancer Center, and our institution wrote cards to people who have been recently diagnosed. So that was a really great, little fundraiser. We got all the employees pink shirts to wear for awareness on Fridays. But that's just an example for this month. All year, we've been working really hard to find a couple activities each month to really help the community just expand their knowledge base, really, to see, that we're including these new things and that it's okay. We embrace change, we embrace diversity. We're trying to, just reassure the community that even if, you may not fit the mold of what you think a banker is, we're happy to have you on. If the qualifications are there and the skills are there, it doesn't, all the other characteristics are washed away. It doesn't matter anything about that. So I think that's one of the most exciting things that I've taken from it. But yeah, we're really just all about educating and seeing how we can include more and more groups.
That's awesome. I really enjoy hosting this panel because the theme that always emerges is that sense of community, which I never expected that a bank would entail when I first hosted this panel. So I love that comes out again and again. That sounds like fantastic work. So shifting gears a little bit, Danielle, could you perhaps speak to skills that you use day to day in your work and maybe some skills that surprise you that you didn't expect to use day to day?
Yeah, so I definitely, time management is a huge, it's all those skills that you really, it's not like the technical skills that, come into play, but it's really about communicating. It's really about listening. And it's making sure you have your priorities set, because I think, as the others have said, we have so many tasks in front of us and our days are very different. And so it's coming in and really prioritizing your day, and just being willing to kind of go outside of your box. Even doing things like this is, it's something that you're not necessarily trained for, but as you kind of get into the different role, to be able to share your experiences, I think is a really great thing. I didn't have a marketing background. And again, I was able to just kind of work in different areas of the bank, and I found that this area had an opening. And so it's you kind of learn as you go. And so I think you can learn the systems piece, and you can go to any company and really learn what they use. But I think it's just having the ability to be adaptable and kind of look at things and analytical. And just, I think those are the kind of the key things.
Yeah, and that ties into, I think, a familiar narrative, which is that essentially with most situations you hire for soft skills because you can train hard skills.
Yep.
I think that really ties in. So a very important follow-up question. Can we get the dog's name?
Yes, I know. Like, my timing tonight is like right when we started, my kids started doing something, and then her name is Reese.
Reese? Okay, I love it. Thank you. So, oh, I'm trying to organize my thoughts here. Alyssa, Elisa, could you please tell us what you might tell a student who is considering a career in banking but is perhaps a little bit uncertain?
Sure. I would say the first thing that would be crucial is getting your foot in the door, because no matter what department you go to, product knowledge is huge. So if you start as a teller, some people are saying, oh, I don't want to do retail forever. You don't have to do it forever, but it's one of the best things you can do. It's probably, in my opinion, the most stressful job in the bank. It was my first job at the bank. But you really learn products and services, you learn how the system works, you learn your customers, you understand that community engagement that so many others have shared on the call. So I would say one of the most important things you can do is just get your foot in the door wherever that door is, and just make the best of it. And going back to the skills question just a little bit, I would say project management is huge, and also Excel. So like if you're thinking about, I don't know where to start, get your foot in the door and get really good at those two things, because no matter what department you end up in, you're going to use it.
Yes. Excel is one of those things where I make jokes about it, but I think you can have an Excel spreadsheet for any aspect of your life and it's useful. So I think that's a fantastic suggestion. Mariah, could I ask you to speak a little bit more about your internship experience and what are the internship programs like, at your bank? And if you could just speak to that a bit more in general, please.
Yeah, so I started as an intern, and I've actually managed an intern for the past 2 years. So I've had that experience as well. It's extremely valuable. And for anybody that's watching this or here tonight, we do have internships they're always recruiting for. They get posted in the spring. And we have internships. I think what's really valuable too is I know there are some questions about like project management and IT and risk and things like that. And we have internships in all of those areas. So we have an IT internship. We've had an HR internship in the past. We always have a marketing internship. And so my experience was really helpful, and just the connections that I made were so great. I mean, I never expected in a company of close to 400 when I interned that the CEO would like know who I am or care who I am, and he did, right? Like he took the time to get to know me, and so did our other senior leadership, and that really spoke a lot of volumes to our culture and just who Mascoma is. But an internship's a great way to get your foot into the door, similar with retail as well. That's also a great way. And we've actually hired, I think, 4 interns full-time now, which is quite a lot considering how new the program is. So again, like just a great way to kind of get in. And I also think, some banks may not have a structured internship program, but I think it's worth asking their human resources department to ask the question if it's something they would consider, because it's a great way to kind of also figure out, like if you're kind of on the edge of not sure if I want to do banking or what part of banking, it's also a really great way to do job shadows and figure out where you might want to go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And sorry, my dog's in the background now too. I've heard an internship described before too. It's basically a month-long interview process and it goes both ways. So it sounds like that's very reflective. And I think that's also, yeah, a great way to get your foot in the door. Like you said, so that's fantastic. Thank you. Mackenzie, could you perhaps explain what you maybe see are some challenges in the banking industry today, and what they might be?
Sure, absolutely. So my institution is very small. We only have 5 branches, and they're all pretty close to the Dover location. And we do have a branch in Durham, right next to the University of New Hampshire. And one of the challenges we're facing is getting younger people to want to be with our bank and to see how we can help them, with their financial goals. Our demographic is typically older, especially for me. The customers we have in the loan department tend to be a little bit older. They've been with the bank for 20 to 30 years. They love us. However, some of the technology advances can be a challenge. Things like e-statements, online banking, sometimes can prove to be a challenge. And a lot of our customers still use like telephone banking and some kind of, those old school ways of doing things. So I think just both presenting the new technology and making it easy to use is probably one of our biggest challenges right now.
That's a really interesting answer. I do recall a family trip one time where we used cashier's checks, or no, traveler's checks, and it was a very, very big hassle. We never did it ever again. So I can imagine that the changing times in banking would definitely present an issue potentially. So that's a great answer. So I'm kind of jumping around here, but Danielle, could you perhaps speak to a lot of the questions that we received from students before this panel were referencing this concept that the best way, or perhaps the only way, to get started in banking is basically sales. There was a lot of conflating banking and sales. Is that the case? Is that not the case? Could you speak to that?
Yes, so I would say that is not the case. I think people associate, I think some larger banks, so there are some banks that really do have a sales component to them, where you're either cross-selling. If someone opens a checking account and they're there in front of you, are you getting them to get a debit card as well? And there are certain parameters you need to meet. But in my banking experience, I have not had that environment. It's more about listening and understanding what the customer needs. And that becomes a natural way of introducing new products and services. So you're really not selling them anything. You're more listening and understanding their needs and then helping them understand what they need in a sense. So I would say the sales component, again, if you go into commercial lending, yes, there's definitely a sales component there, but you know what you're getting yourself into in that sense, if that's an area that you want to get into. So I think that there can be a sales component, but it's definitely not something that I would use to really explain a career in banking.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Mackenzie, just because of your role as a loan officer, does your perspective match that, or do you have a different idea by any chance?
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm not a loan officer, so I don't actually do the lending. I'm in servicing, so I get it after the loan is booked.
Okay.
But I would say the same thing. So my background is no banking experience. I do have a little bit of sales just from like retail things, but I was lucky enough to get, slide right into the back office and not have to do the teller line. But I mean, sales, I feel like the overall kind of consensus is you really want to listen to your customers. And, as a loan person, I have had to learn some of the other products that we offer so that I can better help our customers. So if they call with an issue or want to set up auto pay for their loan or anything like that, then I'm able to, I guess, sales pitch, other products that we may have that will help their needs.
Yeah, great answer. And thank you for clarifying your role too. That was a great distinction to make there. So, and really in a way that makes sense. I think that ties back to our conversation that we've been having about soft skills and community. And it's really just, it's not sales, it's giving them what is needed in the moment. So I absolutely appreciate that. So Elisa, if I could please ask you, I'm actually going to read you a list. So the question was very similar, and it was basically, are there careers in psychology, data science for MBA students, accounting, HR, fraud, and project management? So you can see that there's this scope of backgrounds of people who are interested in banking. And I know we've kind of referred to it before, but if you could just again speak to the fact that there's a large scope of industries a large scope of careers within the industry, I would appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a psychology major. I have no finance or marketing experience. That is not anything in my educational history until I did professional degrees. So psych major, yes. You could go into sales like we've been talking about. You could go into operations. You can go into marketing. You could go into the service center. Anywhere with psychology, I think it would treat you well. One of the others, I'm going to try to remember it in the order you went. I think data analytics was the next one. Is that correct?
Yes.
So data analytics is used both in our reporting side. So we have a reporting team. So that's used heavily there. I would also say in operational functions, functions like Mackenzie was talking about, like in loans, even deposit operations, any back office role, you're going to need some analytical skills. You could use it there. If you want to go into IT, there's a lot of data analysis that happens with servers, and I'm not going to speak outside of my knowledge here. I can just tell you there's a lot that goes into that with analysis. So I would recommend that. HR, you could do the traditional HR path, or maybe you want to go into something that's more like employee engagement or community engagement. There's a lot of different relationships that are developed internally and externally. We even have a chief talent officer at our organization who has marketing and retail and learning and development. So I feel like with HR, you can go pretty universal with that. And am I missing one?
I think fraud and project management were the last two,
Fraud
but
and project management.
I'm
Yes.
so impressed you got all of those so far.
Okay. Fraud is huge, and unfortunately, it's probably one of the, I would say, probably top saddest things we experience every day with our customers. It is so prevalent. So if you're interested in fraud and investigating fraud, that would be pretty much in our risk management department in our bank. Sometimes it's compliance organizations, but working with individuals and customers to understand how did the fraudster get their information, where did they access after they either had a conversation or fell for a phishing technique, whatever it may be. So if you want to be more like the, police officer investigator, I would definitely go into risk management, and fraud analysis is huge. And the project management one, I will say, will go across the bank. So it doesn't matter what department. It could be facilities if you're interested in construction and renovations. It could be a core conversion where you're converting the computer system that houses all of the customer information and how we run the bank. Or it could be something as simple as, we need to take these two departments that have a lot of overlap and we need to bring them together. So there's a human resource component. So I would say there is a place for every single skill set. And I think there's a place for every single degree. I can't think of a degree besides medical or biology, but I say that, and our CEO has a biology degree. So I really think any degree you can go to banking with.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really its own little ecosystem and that it needs a variety within that. So that absolutely makes sense. Awesome. So I'm going to pivot a little bit away from the questions that we've been given in advance. I see there's a couple in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and start kind of lobbing those to you guys. So Mariah, what have been some of your favorite projects that you've worked on, whether they be marketing or more general? Do you feel like it's more of a creative or more of an analytical process as well?
Yeah, so I think my position is both. I work with a lot of data. We've talked about data a bit, but there's a lot of data in banking. So, which wasn't really, I would consider wasn't really one of my strong skill sets. And then that's something I've had to adapt and learn. So that's analytical, but there's also a lot of creativeness with my position. I do a lot of communication, a little bit of conflict management, that kind of thing. So, but some of my favorite projects I've worked on, I think a lot of my position is working with our nonprofit organizations and connecting them with our employees and just making those connections. And that's what's the most valuable part, I think, of my position. And so I've done a lot of projects about just getting people, whether it's getting our employees on nonprofit boards and kind of like advertising that internally. I do a lot of advertising, I call it internally, a lot of internal marketing of, hey, here's some nonprofits that, we would love for you to get engaged in, or here's some volunteer opportunities. So I've done a lot of that stuff, which I really enjoy. And, I think so a lot of my positions employee engagement as well. And so that stuff that I do is really my favorite part, and that's creative. And then also I create a lot of data for myself. So that goes into the analytics part as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, that makes sense because we talk about it as an ecosystem. You have to, I don't want to use the word wrangle, but let's say you have to wrangle the ecosystem to make sure that it's cohesive and that the impact. So that makes complete sense. That's fantastic. So Mackenzie, could you speak to if you have any recommended certifications or trainings or anything like that you maybe, or programs even that you use day to day that you would recommend a student brush up on?
Sure, absolutely. I know we've already talked about it, but Excel, I pretty much live in Excel, and it took me a long time to really understand all the benefits it has and how it can really help me in my day-to-day work. So I took a free Excel course when I first started banking, and that really helped me immensely I've also attended the Northern New England School of Banking, and that was also a really great opportunity. Having no banking background when I started my position, it was a really nice overview of all the aspects of banking. And then I am continuing my learning, and I will take the second school this coming year. I'm also doing one of the New Hampshire Bankers certificates, which is a supervisor leader one. I've taken a lot of the free courses that they have. I think the New Hampshire Bankers really offer a lot of great programs, and a lot of institutions will pay for those, if they're pertinent to your role. So I've just really enjoyed to continue my learning. My degree is not in anything finance, it's actually in criminal justice. So I kind of started from the ground up as far as learning goes, and it's just a journey. You got to be open to learning new things every day.
That's fantastic. I had no idea they had those certification programs. And honestly, you kind of took the next question from me in a way, because it's a common recommendation that for Excel and to have that knowledge. Do you think that it should be like, a general beginner knowledge, more intermediate? Like, at what level do you feel like you're perhaps using Excel?
Yeah, I would say intermediate. I absolutely have more things I can learn, and I'm still learning every day new features. Um, but when I first started having just basic knowledge, I did run into some challenges and some roadblocks, especially with loans. We calculate interest and we do amortization schedules, and those are really not things you want to be doing manually on paper. So I would say intermediate Excel is good.
Okay, fantastic. I know that, what do they call them? Circular, I just forgot the word. What's that word? Circular patterns, formulas. Those will be the death of me one day. I've broken so many Excel documents before with those, so that is good to know. So, Danielle, thinking again about a student who might be wanting to prepare to even break into the banking industry, would you have recommendations for any particular, volunteer opportunities they should be taking, or anything else they should be brushing up on so that their application to get into the industry would be most successful?
Sure. I think that it's about doing something that you're passionate about, I think is really what it is. And so finding an organization, there's so many nonprofit now that I've kind of gotten into this role. I've just been introduced to so many different nonprofits just in our local community, and we're one little corner of New Hampshire, and so I think just really kind of seeing what's out there and finding something that really sits with you personally, because then you're going to be able to you're going to want to help that organization. And so I think that's important. That's one thing. I think Mariah said it as well. It's like, that's one of the more satisfying things about my role, is I'm able to find what employees like, what their interests are, and find an organization and kind of match make and so doing some of that research, I think, ahead of time, or just making those connections. I think so many organizations would love having, a younger perspective on their board, or volunteering. And so I think that's something to, start researching now.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. And Mariah, I think somewhat along that vein, perhaps, I know that you mentioned you've got, and I can't recall, it was like you're studying the environmental impact. Is that correct? Could you
Yeah.
speak to that, and perhaps how maybe a student could get involved with that?
Yeah, so it's definitely a growth area. And I will say that I think and this is for any company, if companies are not talking about their environmental impact within the next few years, they're going to be. So it's an area that's growing, and a lot of organizations don't have expertise in it. I don't at all. I don't have any background on that. And I'm learning new things every day, and things that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. So it's a growth opportunity for me. Um, but yeah, we're looking at, what's our impact on the environment and how can we minimize that? And that's, created some new employee benefits we're offering. We have a new employee loan that people can take out to get like an energy efficient car. And so it's a growth area, and there's new things. And actually, environment is such a good example. There's new things like that come up into banking that 5 years ago we weren't talking about. and now it's going to be a big thing. And that's happening constantly. And so it's just so interesting that, maybe you don't start in banking, but eventually you get your way in there, and, your expertise and your career path, you wouldn't have thought it led you there, but the industry is just growing all the time. So yeah, we're looking at our environmental impact and kind of how we can minimize that. And that's anywhere from like making sure our lights are, shutting off and what the temperature is set at, to, things like how far our employees commuting, and, we should be offering hybrid work when we can. So things like that as well that we're looking at for the first time.
Yeah, that's great. And so to build off of that, and I'll open this question up to anybody, we've referenced it before that banks really are involved in the community. The community is important. I would say it's even critical. Could anyone speak more to that, and maybe why that relationship is there and what your bank is doing to help that relationship as well?
I'm happy to speak to this. I didn't want to overstep anyone else. I think, the success of our community is key to the success of our banks. And so that's how my role really came about. We've always been really supportive financially in our communities, but we wanted to really take it a step further and show our communities that we're not just giving them money. We're here to volunteer. We're here to be present. We're here to support the initiatives you're doing. And so I think that plays a really big role, and presence is really like one of those key strategies for us, and it's being there. And I think it's really worked for us, and people know that we're not just saying we're a local bank. We are here in our community, and we're right there next to them, trying to make sure things are running smoothly and are successful. So
I love that. I'm from a small town, and it's slightly inconvenient, but I have the same bank account that I've had since I was in kindergarten, even though the bank is now 4 hours away, but I keep it because that's sense of community. So I absolutely appreciate that as well. So an interesting question just came across the chat, and I don't want to miss it. So Elisa, could you perhaps speak to if crypto is or cryptocurrencies, is that a big talking point in the bank industry right now?
So that's definitely a big topic of conversation, and banks are varying degrees getting into it. So we have some competitors in our market that are doing crypto lending, and they have crypto debit cards, and they're heavily into crypto. Our particular institution is definitely exploring it, but it's not a huge part of our business model. So it really depends on each bank, what their risk tolerance is and how much they want to get involved with it. Kind of the middle road that some institutions are taking is they're making relationships with different fintechs that have crypto technologies, and they're partnering with them as opposed to housing all the technology in-house. So I would say we're kind of a mid-sized community bank, and it's something that we talk about, but it's really not a very large focus right now, not as much as the rate environment, which definitely takes a precedence.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. So with that in mind, we've got about 20 minutes, or excuse me, we don't. We have about 10 minutes left. I apologize. So what I've done is I've actually changed it to where if any student wants to turn off their mic or turn on their camera or their mic and ask a question, they're welcome to. But otherwise, while we see if there are questions, I'm going to go ahead and round robin this with one of my favorite questions, which is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received, whether it's professionally related or not? So for example, one of mine is that my mother always told me that every Friday without fail, you clean off your desk because it's a fresh mind on Monday. I often ignore that, but I do like it when I listen to her. So Mariah, we can start with you and we can just round robin it from there.
Okay. I could talk a long time about this, so I'll keep it short. So the biggest advice I've been given, and something that I've been working a lot on the last few years, but really advocating for yourself. I think a lot of times we don't do that enough. I think women don't do that enough. And that's been just the biggest thing that has helped me, is kind of just, talk to your manager, and, if you're in college, talk to professors, like talk to people about what you're wanting to do, what your goals are, and have those conversations on a regular basis. A lot of times in companies, it's set up where you're talking with your manager about your goals and your successes like once a year. we should be doing it a lot more often, right? I talk to my manager quarterly. So that's just, advice that I've been given that I'm always trying to relay to people is be your own advocate, because sometimes you'll have people that will advocate for you, but that's not always the case. So if you're doing it yourself, then that's kind of the best way, I think, to get to kind of career progression.
I love that. That's fantastic. Anyone else, you're welcome to jump in. I don't want to put you on the spot because I know that's a big question you weren't prepared for. So just jump in whenever you're ready.
I can jump in. So something my mom, who it's so funny on this call, we have 3 mom bankers. My mom was also a banker. But something she always told me was to follow your heart. It will always lead you to the right place. And I think when you're in college and you're looking at your career, you feel like the first step you have to take is the step that's going to determine the rest of your life. And it's so overwhelming to make a decision. And if you just take a minute and pause and just listen to your heart and do like what your heart or your gut, whatever you want to listen to, but whatever deep down feels like the right thing, you might not understand why. And I think a big part of life is just taking those little leaps of faith and trust within yourself. And then when you look back at your life, Steve Jobs has a quote that going forward, you never understand how the dots connect. But when you look back, it's a beautiful map. And I think just trusting that you're going in the right direction, if you always follow what you're passionate about, you'll always be in the right spot.
I love that.
I think to kind of build off of that, I think patience is key, because it's really you leave college thinking, oh, I need to have it all kind of planned out. And it's just, you really just have to be patient. And also, maybe this isn't necessarily advice, but just what you like, my role only came about 2 years ago. And I think someone else said, there's going to be other roles around the environment. And, there's just so many things that you may not know now that will be an opportunity later. And so I think just if there's something that you really are passionate about, and keep going for it. And I think you'd be surprised at what kind of, lays out in front of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and all of that kind of ties into mine as well. So mine really is you are what you do. And that doesn't mean you have to, eat, sleep, breathe, work. It really just means that it's important to find something that you believe in and that you're working towards. If you're driven and you want to move up, you'll do it, right? You are what you do. So if you're respectable, you work with the community, there's just so many opportunities that can open themselves to you.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of what's been said here reminds me of a quote from my dad, which is, and he wrote it down somewhere. I have it on my messy desk somewhere, but it's, you are of infinite worth. And I think that really ties into a lot of what's been said here. And I have to acknowledge, I really appreciated having a conversation with 4 very accomplished women today. And I appreciate your all's time. I haven't received any more questions, so I'm not going to drag us out for 5 more minutes, but I, again, appreciate the conversation this evening. I think that the perspectives you guys shared were absolutely amazing, and I appreciate the time that you took this evening as well.
Thank you
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome back anytime. Thanks, you guys. Everyone have a great night.
You too.